And may that indeed be the prayer of our heart, that God would bring us His higher love. Our gospel today comes from the Gospel of Luke, where we read, "After Jesus had finished all His sayings in the hearing of the people, He entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave whom he valued highly and who was ill and close to death. When he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to him, asking him to come and heal his slave. When they came to Jesus, they appealed to him earnestly, saying, 'He is worthy of having you do this for him, for he loves our people, and it is he who built our synagogue for us.' So Jesus went with them, but when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to say to him, 'Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, therefore I did not presume to come to you. But only speak the word, and let my servant be healed. For I also am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, Go, and he goes, and to another, Come, and he comes, and to my slave, Do this, and the slave does it.' When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, 'I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith.' When those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave in good health." Let us pray. O Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard, and we ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Please be seated. Will you get me a can of soda out of the refrigerator and a garbage can that I can hold it over? Thanks. Children's Chapel with Dave and fantastic, and Chris. Dave and Chris, fantastic. Well, I have been a priest for almost 27 years, and today I'm going to preach a sermon that I have never preached before in my life. And part of the reason that I've never preached a sermon is that although Jesus plainly teaches this, I've never been quite sure I actually believe it. All right, as embarrassing as that is, just the truth. And then the second part of it is that I've been afraid that if I did believe it, if I did preach it, I'd be afraid of what people would think of me. And so that fear has sort of kept me from preaching this particular sermon. But then I read a book by a professor at a top institution in the world, and this is a top-rated professor in that institution. This is a book that's filled with impeccable research and all kinds of scientific studies, and he makes the same plain statement that Jesus does. I mean, just right out there, that same plain statement. And I saw that there, and it made me think. I thought, okay, Jesus said this 2,000 years ago. He taught it very plainly. Here's one of the brightest men in one of the brightest institutions in the world today, and he's teaching it too. So maybe I need to pay a little bit more attention to that. And it got me thinking about my own life. And I thought, I may not believe it enough to preach it, but boy, I sure believe it in my own life. I mean, I sure live it. I mean, it's sure one of the guiding principles that guides me every day of my life. And I thought, I have benefited from this principle, just immeasurably, over and over and over again, letting this principle guide me. And all that I do has just brought me such great benefit. And I thought, and this was where it got a little painful, I thought, what kind of person would believe something for themselves, benefit from it tremendously over and over, but be afraid to preach it to others for what others might think? I thought, gee, that's wrong. And so I decided that today I need to correct that. That today I need to trust Jesus, trust you, and just preach what I have not preached for 27 years. And here's what we're going to preach about today. All right, you ready? Here it is. The more you give, the more you get. The more you give, the more you get. Now, don't write me off right away, please. All right? Don't stop listening to me, and but please just give me a chance to explain a little bit more what I mean by that. So let's start with Jesus. Let's start with Jesus and how Jesus taught this. And we can start with today's gospel. In today's gospel, we see three groups of people, three groups or characters of people. First one are the Pharisees. And the Pharisees recommend that Jesus help the centurion. There's the Pharisees, the centurion, and Jesus. The Pharisees recommend that Jesus help the centurion with the problem that he has, But they only recommend that because the centurion was good to them in the first place. So in other words, they're not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing that because they benefited from the goodness of this centurion before and because they hope to benefit from in the future. So this isn't so much giving for somebody else's benefit. They're just operating in a shrewd way for their own benefit. And then there's the centurion. And the centurion has done something for the Jews. He's built a synagogue from them. He's acted, in their, done things that they wanted him to do. But it's unclear exactly why he's done these things. He may just have done it because it was the best way to do his job. It just was shrewd business sense. I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. The Jews and the Romans didn't get along, and he thinks, well, if I can do something nice for them, maybe they'll appreciate it, do something nice for me, and we can have a great working relationship. Again, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. And that may well be why he asked Jesus to help him in this situation. He may well figure that Jesus owes him. Jesus is a Jew. The centurion has helped the Jews. He's helped the Jews, and so they owe him. They need to reciprocate. And so now the centurion has a need, and Jesus as a Jew can return that favor. That may be why he goes to him. Not only does this man understand how authority works, he understands how the world works. I did this for you, Jesus, now you do this for me. And he's asking on behalf of his slave. Yes, that's true, but the reason that he's asking is because he highly values this slave. In other words, this slave, he's not doing it for his own benefit, for the slave's benefit. He's doing it for his own benefit because he doesn't know what he'd do without this slave. If this slave wasn't able to do the work that the slave did, it would inconvenience the centurion. So again, he's not asking for the slave's benefit so much as his own benefit, because he would be put out if he didn't have the slave to do all this work that he needs the slave to do. So, while Jesus commends this man's faith, and this man's faith is commendable, there's absolutely nothing in this text that suggests that this guy is a particularly good man. And certainly, there is nothing in this text that suggests this guy has any interest in Jesus whatsoever beyond his solving this problem that he has. There's no indication that he was converted, no indication that he ever followed Jesus beyond that, no indication that he ever even talked with Jesus again, in the future. And so over against these first two groups, which sort of have this scratch my back, I'll scratch your back attitude, where they're willing to do things for other people if other people do things for them, we have Jesus. And Jesus acts in a very different way than these other two groups or characters, because he acts without expectation of anything in return. He knows that the Pharisees are going to, it's going to go badly with them shortly. He knows that the centurion has his job to do, and when push comes to shove, he's going to keep doing it. He's going to be loyal to Rome and not to him. And so Jesus knows that he's not going to benefit from that, but it still doesn't stop him from helping both groups of people. Jesus in this gospel is the one person who characterizes for us what it means to be a true giver, a person who approaches life not so much with thought of himself, what he can get out of a situation, but with what he can do for other people, with how he can add value to situations, about how he can make life better for other people. And that's always Jesus' approach. Because Jesus takes loving other people seriously, and because Jesus understands it's the nature of love to give itself away, Jesus approaches life as a giver, always looking for the things that he can do that are in the best interest of the people that are around him. Looks different for different people, but he's always looking for things that he can do for them. And Jesus will not only live this day in, day out. It characterizes his whole life from the time he gives away his rights and privileges as God to come as a human being to earth, to the time that he gives his very life away on the cross. Jesus not only lives this his whole life through, but he also teaches it. And he teaches it very clearly in Luke 6:38, where there is, and I've memorized this verse several times in the course of my life, but I still forget it. And that's where Jesus says this. These are his words. He says, "Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap." Now, what's he talking about? He's talking about the fermentation process. You put some things together, you shake them up, it releases gas, and they expand. They expand so much that they overflow and pour out into your lap. We can get at that a little bit in our own day with soda, right? And so if you put a couple things together, and if you shake them up really, really good, shake them up really, really good. Sam here shake this a couple times just to make sure it's good and shaken. and you bring it over here like this, and you pop the top, what's going to happen? Yeah, well, how far down do you think I should put it? Oh, so yes, it runs over, overflows because it's expanding. There's more of it. It's good stuff. Here, you can pass it down. So that's the point. That's the point. Is that, and so what Jesus will go on to say is that the measure you use is the measure. We drank that stuff back in the 80s, man. It was really good, but no, they didn't have that back then. That's such a good thing to be alive today. Regular Coke. That's right. So Jesus says the measure you use is the measure the next thing he says, the measure you use is the measure that will be measured to you. The measure you use is the measure that will be measured to you. In other words, the more you give, thank you, the more you get. The more you get. I mean, that's exactly right. That's sort of how it works. The Message translates it beautifully when it puts it this way, and I think the Message gets it just right. These, again, are the words of Jesus. Give away your life, and you'll find life given back, but not merely given back with bonus and blessing. Giving, not getting, is the way. Generosity begets generosity. And so that's Jesus. It seems to me pretty clear, pretty darn clear what Jesus teaching. Doesn't seem to me that there's much way to escape that. And whether or not we believe Jesus is God, not everybody does. I do. Not everybody does. Still, most people wouldn't argue that nobody ever lived a better life than Jesus. And part of what made the life of Jesus so good is the way that he just gave himself away to others. And part of what Jesus is doing when he says to people, the measure that you give is the measure that will be given to you, is he's not asking people for anything. Because Jesus never had a penny to his name. But he just believes that that's the way that life works. To the bottom of his, to the core of his being, to the depths of his bones, he believes that that's the way that life works. And he came that people might have life abundantly. That's what Jesus says. And so what he's doing is he's sharing divine insight, authoritative wisdom, hoping that people will understand this principle so that they can live their life as well as he lived his life, and that they'll be as generous with giving themselves away as he was generous with giving himself away. The more you give, the more you get. That's Jesus. Now we come to this guy in our own day, Alan Grant, who's written the book Give and Take, which is a great book, and I highly recommend it to you. He's the youngest professor, tenured professor ever at Wharton School of Business, won their top award for the best business professor, considered one of the top business professors, and all these accolades this guy has. And this book is an amazing book. And one of the things that he just comes right out and says, and I mean, again, I was sort of surprised to read this, and but it's right there. He comes out and he says, he comes out and he says that the more you make, the more you give, the more you'll make. Again, very surprising thing to say. The more money that people give away, the more money they'll actually make. People make more money, he says, when they give it away. And he begins by citing a study of 30,000 Americans. The study was done in the year 2000, and what he found, and this is an exact quote, he says, for every $1 in extra charitable giving, income went $3.75 higher. In other words, and again I'm quoting exact words, giving actually seemed to make people richer. You hear tones of Jesus in there? Giving actually seemed to make people richer. For example, imagine that you and I are both earning $60,000 a year. I give $1,600 to charity. You give $2,500 to charity. Although you give away $900 more than I did, according to the evidence, you'll be on track to earn $3,375 more than I do. Surprising as it is, people who give more go on to earn more. Now, let me just read that again. Again, these are his words. People who give more go on to earn more. And then he'll go on and he'll give a whole bunch of reasons, very logical reasons why this is true. He'll back it up with impeccable scientific research. And so, again, he's going to assert that the more you give, the more you get. But he's not doing that because he wants anything from everybody. He, like Jesus, believes this is genuinely true, and he wants to share this with people because he believes this is the best way to live. He wants to help people. It's not that he wants to get something from them. It's because he's a giver who wants to give something to them. And then that brings me to my own life. And in my life with Linda, and of all the values that we hold, this is the one on which we're most closely aligned. This is the one in which we experience the deepest solidarity. This is the one that has just brought us such joy and blessing together. And you see, Linda and I were taught, from the earliest times, that and you were taught this too, I'm sure, that part of what makes a person a good person is they give back. What makes a good person is they just give generously. And further, we were taught that what makes a person a good Christian, or part of what it means to be a good Christian, this doesn't make you a good Christian, but part of what a good Christian does, is that they give very generously. In fact, we were taught that out of every $10 we give, the first dollar you just give back to God. You don't even think about it, just automatic. Not bragging, not boasting. This is just the way we're taught. Every $10, God, here's a dollar. Every $10, God, here's a dollar. Every $10, God, here's a dollar. And that's how we've lived our life. I mean, that's just how we've approached life. And that for us has just been a source of such incredible joy, contentment, a sense of great meaning. It has brought us, it's been a beautiful thing. We've never lacked for anything. Now, a couple quick caveats here, very important caveats, a couple quick caveats here. When I say we've never lacked for anything, I'm not saying give to God and you'll get a Ferrari or maybe a Corvette. That is not true. I keep hoping it is, but that is not true. That is not what I'm saying. Linda and I live very, very simply. Come to our house, look at our checkbook, spend a day with us. We live very, very simply. And so when I say we've never wanted for anything, part of that is just because we live very simply. We don't need a whole lot. So that frees us up to give and just to really benefit from giving like that. And then the second caveat is for this to work, for a person to, the more you give, the more you get. You got to believe in what you're given to. You got to believe that it's making an impact. That's what really releases the joy of giving, is the belief that the world's a better place because you're giving to it, because you're giving back to it. And so if we at St. Matthew's, if we have not demonstrated to you that we're making an impact on the people around you, on the community around you, on our children, on future generations, on the world, then don't give to us. Give to somebody who you believe is making that impact. If we have not yet proved that to you, give us a chance to prove that. That we're a lean running organization who does everything in our power and then some to, not to get rich ourselves, but to help the people and world around us out in any way we can. That's what's important to us. But if you haven't been able to see that, don't give to us. To sponsor a child in a third world country, give to the people who are suffering, from the tornadoes in Oklahoma. But if we have demonstrated that, like if we've demonstrated that by in faith building this building that makes a difference in so many people's lives in so many ways, then give generously to that, because you'll always feel good about that in your life. That is something you'll look back on and say, that will give you more joy knowing you've spent your money like that than almost anything else you can do with it. Give generously to that. And then here's the final caveat. The final caveat, and this sort of takes away everything we've already said, but the final caveat is that you can't give just to get. In other words, you can't say, okay, Father Rob said I give more, I get more, so I'm going to give more, so I'll get more. And the point of that is we're not really giving, we're really looking to get. And there's a word for that. We call those folks fakers, all right? Those aren't givers, they're not takers, they're actually fakers. And what fakers do is they look like givers so that they can actually get more for themselves. A whole category of people, fascinating category of people. And so if that's the only reason we're giving so that we can benefit from that giving, we become fakers. No, I'm talking about giving not so what we can get. Jesus is talking about not what we could get, but we're talking about really giving without any thought at all of what we get out of it, but only of how the people around us will benefit from it, how future generations will benefit from our gifts, how children will benefit from our gifts, how the community around us will benefit from the gifts, how lonely people in our midst will benefit from our gifts, how married people feel their marriage, that's the reason we give, because because we're interested in bettering the lives of people around us and adding value to the lives of the people around us. So, although I've never preached this before, I just decided that it was time for me to change my tune. Because the problem is that when I lived one way, when Linda and I lived one way, personally following this principle and being so deeply blessed by it over and over again, and when I was afraid to preach that to you because I was afraid you'd think, he's just self-serving, he's trying to manipulate us, he's trying to weasel his way into our pocketbook, I realized that what I was actually doing was denying you the great blessing that Linda and I have known in living this way in our own life. And I hope that in the years we've been with you, you've seen how we live, and you have seen what a blessing that it is to us, how that's blessed us in our relationship, how that's blessed us in our life, the happiness, the contentment, the joy that we find in that. And that's what I want for you. I want for you what we've found. I want for you what Jesus wants for you, what Jesus promised. I want you to trust Him and to follow in His ways. And so, though for many, many years I've made excuses for people not to give, I've decided I need to stop doing that. I've made excuses for people not to give generously. For instance, one of the things we've often said is that, everybody in their life has seasons of giving and seasons of grace. And in seasons of grace, don't give. Just let the church come alongside you and help you and give to you. Now, I still believe that. There are seasons of giving and seasons of grace, and sometimes when you're in a tough time, you do. You just need the church to come alongside you and just help you and just receive that help. But even in those situations, you still need to give. You still need to give. Maybe it's just $1 a week, maybe it's just this, but you still need to give, because giving changes the trajectory of our lives. It changes our hearts. You might not want to give to us, that's okay. Give to something else that you believe in, somebody else you believe in, but you still need to give. Because giving does something. It's the way that God works in our lives and unleashes His power, unleashes His blessing, the way that He changes us into His image. And, it's just such an important thing. And so I would say to you, no matter where you are in life or what you're going through, I'd say we need to give and give generously. And in fact, I'd say that the place to start is with tithing. We've always sort of made excuses for people not to tithe. If you can't tithe 10%, start at 1%. No. Do it. Do it. Your life will be better for it. I can tell you, because and if you don't believe me, just try it for 6 months and see what happens. $1 out of every 10. And I'm telling you that because Jesus said it. I'm telling you because this, a modern guy said it and backed up with empirical research. I'm telling you because I found it to be true in my life. Because I believe if you do this, your life will be better. It's not that I'm trying to get more from you. I hope you believe that. It's because I believe everything I see tells me that your life will be better if you do that. And so today, as we wrap up our capital campaign, just a moment we take an offering, I hope you'll give very generously. I hope you've prayed with us, Lord, what would you have me do? And I hope you've listened to God, and I hope you'll be obedient to Him, and I hope that you'll do that. We've already gotten a couple $10,000 gifts. We've already gotten a $15,000 gift. We've already got a $1,000 gift. I mean, whatever it is, whatever you've heard God say. If you haven't said that prayer, and you feel God tugging on your heart, you want to do something now, listen. And remember, even pennies count. Maybe you're in a tough situation. Maybe you don't have much. Maybe you do just have 10 cents. Okay, put that 10 cents in. Give. Giving is important. It's at the very heart of a life well lived. And it's at the very heart of being the kind of person that you want to be. So I hope you'll give generously, because it's the right thing to do, because that's the kind of person that you want to be. But here's what I believe, that when you do that, God, in amazing and astounding ways, will bless you back and pour out His goodness in your heart, even as He brings tears of joy to your eyes. I believe that, and I hope you will too. Amen.